the way to work or after school or whatever it is, to understand the power that you have with that vote and to take the time, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, to go and vote. It'd be great if people in my district voted for me, but regardless, to take the time to vote, because that is a right we have. And we've seen the consequences of what happens when we feel like we don't need to vote or when our votes don't matter. And in order for us to even attempt to get back on track, we need to use our voice. And really the most direct way to do that is to vote. So this is my rally cry to all your listeners who I'm sure are going to vote. But this is that piece where, yeah, exactly. This is the piece where it's not only about you. Call your friends, text your friends, send an email, go pick someone up at their house. Their social media has run amok, right? So just do whatever you have to do to make sure that people who can vote actually do so, because we don't know what the other side looks like if we don't vote. And I would rather not think about what the other side looks like, and I would for sure not have to live through what that other side could look like.
If our listeners would like to help out your campaign, how can they do that?
That's a great question. So at this point now, really the most important thing for me is direct voter contact. So we have really easy ways to set up phone banking anywhere, to do it remotely. So, if somebody said, I have an hour free on a Thursday afternoon and can call 10 people, one of which may actually pick up the phone and just explain why me running for office, why I should be the person that they vote for and why they should tell their friends to vote for me. That is really the most critical. Of course, if there are folks who live locally who would like to come knock doors with me or someone on the team, that's even better. But I'm not going to push my luck. So if folks are willing to, say, hey, I have a couple hours here and there and I can make some phone calls. I know it's awkward at first when you do it, but afterwards it feels really, really good. And you know that you've been involved in a way that absolutely makes a difference. The night of the Alabama special election in December, I was making calls to people in Alabama, a couple hours before the polls had closed, just to make sure that they got out to vote. And some of the answers was they were like, yeah, I voted. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that means you probably voted the opposite that I would have encouraged you to. But then I will always remember this woman who was, clearly a mom in her mid-40s. You could hear the kids running around in the background. And, she was like, I voted, my whole family voted. And they were just so excited to be able to use their voice in that moment. So whether it's the ability to actually get someone off the couch to go and vote, or to remind them hey, you think the polls close at 6, but they close at 8, whatever it might be, so they understand that, again, that voting is so critical. And to be informed when they go into the voting booth is obviously the best way to go. So any of your listeners who are interested in jumping on that bandwagon, I would appreciate them forever. And I know that feeling of satisfaction afterwards, you can take my word for it, or you can actually jump in. And I swear the worst thing that will happen is somebody will hang up on you. And at the end of the day, if that's the worst thing that happens to you in a day, that's really not a terrible day.
And what is your website?
My website is CaitlinForCT.com, and my first name is spelled CAITLIN. It's FORCT.com. And that's also those are my social media handles.
All right. Excellent. We'll put those up on our website as well.
Perfect.
Well, Caitlin, thanks so much for joining us. This is really fun, and I'm so glad to see you really sticking with this fight to get childcare. It's just so important, and it's frankly disgusting that the state elections board responded to you the way that they did. So I'm glad to see you calling them out on that.
Yes, I will fight the good fight until the bitter end. Someone said to me the other day, they said, I don't think they realized who they were saying no to. And I was like, yeah, that's true. That is accurate. So, who knows what will happen. And, the fight isn't just about me. This is something that may not even be finalized until well after I've submitted receipts, and childcare can't be part of that. But if it's somebody for mothers and fathers and parents and middle-class folks to have the ability to look to as a resource in the future to run for office, and then also, again, to spark a national conversation about affordable childcare and why we don't have such a thing in this country, then it's all worth it. And I'm really honored to be a part of that fight.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and I hope some of our listeners take you up on making those phone calls, and we'll watch your race as we head to November.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. CleanTheHouse.org was started by 3 generations of a family saddened and angered by the daily onslaught of Trump administration outrages and the complicity of Republicans in Congress. Together, the family formed a plan to turn the House blue. Researching the districts considered toss-ups or leaning Democratic, they identified 36 districts that together can take back the House. Through Act Blue, they made it easy to donate to all 36 districts in one swoop. For as little as $36, you can give $1 to each of these districts. Visit CleanTheHouse.org and follow at CleanTheHouse18 on Facebook and Twitter. Help support these 36 districts and tell everyone you know to do the same. Let's clean the house this November. Visit CleanTheHouse.org because you give $1. I am here in this segment with Christina Sappy, who is running in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in District 158. Hi, Christina.
Hi there. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure.
Could we start with just a little bit of background? Where are you coming from? What sorts of experiences do you have? And why did you decide to run this year?
Sure. I get those questions all the time. I have a background in business. After college, I worked in New York in the fashion industry and managed, very small businesses to significantly larger businesses. And then my husband and I moved here to Chester County 25 years ago and had 3 children in rapid succession. So I've been a stay-at-home mom for many years, and I've been a founder of a nonprofit that I'm still on the board of. And I've also spent the last decade working as an assistant, legislative assistant chief of staff for several of our area legislators in the House and the Senate. And I loved that job. I have to say that. I love the people I worked for. I love the work. I love serving the people of Chester County in that capacity. And I thought I was able to utilize my strengths in that position. But I've also been able to see in that position just how dysfunctional and partisan our state government has become. And we don't really get a lot of information on that on a regular basis, the way we do about federal government. And after a while, it gets to the point, particularly after the 2016 election, where you have to start to say, what can I do? How can I help change this? We are so dug in, and we are just not proactively attacking some of the issues that we really need to be tackling. We have a lot of things here in Pennsylvania that we've been just dragging our feet on addressing, and this is going to rear its head very soon. It's like, what are we doing for our young people here in Pennsylvania? We need to give them a reason to stay and to attract other talent to Pennsylvania. And I'm just tired of watching nice people up there do nothing. It's no longer enough to be a nice person. We really need strong, talented people that are willing to collaborate at a higher level to get things done. And that's why I'm running.
Can you tell me a little bit about the district? So we've talked some about Pennsylvania on the podcast before, but just to remind listeners, there are a lot of districts in Pennsylvania, over 200, I believe, which is fairly unusual, maybe the most that we've seen in any state. So what does District 158 look like?
Well, and I agree with you. It's an enormous government. We have the largest, most expensive full-time legislature in the country. So I'm not a dubious distinction. But the 158 very gerrymandered also. The 158th is an extremely gerrymandered district that starts on the other side of Westchester and snakes down through past Kennett Square. So we have a little bit of West Goshen, East Bradford, West Bradford, Newland Township, East and West Marlborough Townships, and New Garden, London, Britain, and Avondale. And it's a really interesting district. I'm running for the seat here because I love it here. My husband and I have lived in the district for 17 years. We raised our kids here. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area full of historic and natural resources. The nonprofit that I helped found was one that actually advocates and works very hard to protect natural and historic resources. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I feel strongly about those things. But it's rural suburban. We have a very strong equestrian community here. We have a very strong agricultural legacy here. We snake around Kennett Square, which is the mushroom capital of the world, but we have a lot of different kinds of agriculture and a very vibrant landscape industry as well. So, we have we have a vibrant small business community, but we also have the agriculture and the equestrian community. So it's a wonderful area. I'd be so proud and honored to represent these interests.
And so this district has been represented by a Republican for the past 2 years and for several years before that. And
yeah, it's a long time.
It, looks like decent margins that the Republican has been winning by, not huge margins, but decent margins. Mm-hmm. But in this primary, so your primary was in May, and you actually got more votes in your primary than the incumbent got in his. What are you seeing in the district? What does it feel to you like there are more Democrats that are voting now? Does it feel like there are likely to be more Democrats voting in the fall?
There's a lot changing in the 158th, but also throughout Chester County. And in the 158th, we have around 15,000 Democrats and around 19,000 Republicans. And we have been steadily gaining in registration on the Democratic side over the last several years, particularly since 2016. And the Republicans seem to be holding steady. So, there's a lot more parity, I think, than there used to be. And we're seeing a lot of people voting and being strongly engaged after the 2016 election, frankly. I saw it in the offices that I've been working in, where, the day after the election, people started calling saying, how do I get involved? What can I do? And people are engaged in a level that they haven't been, again, for years. So I think they're voting. And I think, obviously in the primary, independents cannot vote, or nonpartisans or others can't vote in our primary here in Pennsylvania. But I think this year they're really thinking hard about who they're going to vote for. And people who are registered independent that typically leaned right, from what I'm hearing on doors when I'm knocking every day, is that they're leaning left this year. They've just about had it. So that's I think the change we're going to see.
So when you are knocking on those doors, what are the kind of issues that you're really hearing about from people? What's causing them to maybe lean a little bit more left? Which issues are driving that?
Well, usually when I'm talking to folks, I'll ask them what's important to them, and they all roll their eyes and say, where do I start? And I think there is a disgust with the gridlock, and they understand that for the last decade, we've had Republican majorities in the House and Senate, and a lot isn't happening. And they know that. We have a highly informed, engaged population here in Chester County, and they understand that nobody's doing anything. And so you can come home and talk about how moderate and bipartisan you are and make everybody believe that you're a nice person, and that may all be genuine, but at the end of the day, we're not being represented. And the things that we're hearing that are really important to them are public education, protecting the environment, property tax reform. Healthcare is an extremely important issue.